the supernatural.
Download the Legacy Edition of Spirit Blade, a full past audio drama, for free at spiritblade.com.
Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, sitting here and talking with Stephen and Michael Stagliano, I'm going to say for now, of Story Games. Is it Stagliano or Stagliano, or is it the hybrid that I think I heard, which is like Stagliano? Is that it?
Steve, you say it. Don't think about it. Just say it. What do you say? Stagliano. Yeah, that was it. But what's interesting about
I think I would say Stagliano, but I'm a weirdo, so.
Well, you nailed the Italian. That is how Italians say it. Like we're half Italian. So the Stagliano. Yeah, that's a little bit.
You gotta do this with your hand. You gotta pinch your fingers. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, yeah. So Stephen and Michael, you guys are here to talk about your company, Story Games, and this really wild endeavor called The Forgotten King. First off, thanks for being here. Let's dive right into it. So the description of the company that you guys run at playstorygames.com says you are a transmedia company that is blurring the lines between gaming and entertainment. So what in the world does that mean? And where do you guys start when you're trying to explain what you're doing to people?
Oh my gosh. Wow. What an intro. First, thank you for having us here. We're generally just so excited to be here and tell you about what we're doing. We had a great kind of pre-conversation, Peter. So it's really good to be on the show. Thank you. And thanks for that intro too, man. I love good introductions. Gosh, it's funny hearing you say it and kind of read it off of our website made me think, I wonder if 10 years from now, people would be like, oh yeah, how did that not exist before? Because we're just that excited about what we're doing. So when we say transmedia and specifically blurring the lines between gaming and entertainment, what we're really after, what we really want to deliver for fans is an experience where they can become part of the story. And that sounds like, what the heck are you talking about? But I like using Star Wars as a really good reference for any of my Star Wars fans out here. You should love this. And Peter, I think we talked about this a little bit. If you understand how Rogue One operates in the Skywalker saga, specifically in its episode 4 or 5, I can't remember, where that general says, thousands have died to get us these plans to destroy the Death Star. That was a horrible quote, but something like that. And then if you think about the story of Rogue One, what that movie is, that's just the people that went onto the planet to get the plans and then send them up, right? Like how that operates. Well, what if that was a game? What if you were a trooper on the ground and when the game starts, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to get the plans, and that's everything that you played through, and you can do that with your friends. That's at a very high, weird Star Wars level. What we're trying to do, we want to give fans the opportunity to create characters in our world called Alderaan, that then become part of the story, and the adventure path that they play through, what we're building, what we're in development on, is just part of the story. So we have book 1 that we're literally releasing today. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And have plans to make it into an animated series. What we want, sorry, this is the longest explanation ever.
No, it's good.
What we're looking to deliver is an experience where fans can now listen to the show, we call it, but the book, the story. And then the game that we're making, right where it picks up, when players come in and make their own story, is right where the show left off. So one of the first things they do is help a main character from the show escape. He gets captured. There's this little cutscene that continues the story, and then they wake up in the cell next to him, and you're like, oh my God, you're part of the story right there. So
yeah.
Anyways, I don't know if that made any sense, but that's let me help. There's an animated TV show and a video game that have the same visual language, and the stories are connected. That's how we're trying to blur the lines. So you can watch a show and play a game, and the stories are connected. That's the transmedia experience that we're after, and we think it's a first of its kind.
Gotcha. So rather than it being a single like an adaptation of a single story across multiple mediums, you guys each one is kind of its own story, but in the same world and complementing each other. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that was pretty well said. And I think I could even kind of break it down chronologically. If you think about watching a season of a television show, and then an adventure path comes out, a video game that you can play that's connected to that, all we're really doing is releasing seasons of a TV show and adventure paths of a video game next to each other over the course of, we have 7 seasons mapped out and 7 adventure paths. We want to be one of the first studios that puts content out in a way that you can watch and play over time and chronologically tell the story together with your friends as you watch and as you play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, as you mentioned, Stephen, today, big day, launch. We're recording this, I should say, on September 26th. It's going to go up, if all goes according to plan, tomorrow on the 27th. But so what exactly is launching today on the 26th of September 2024?
Yeah, it's book one of the saga. So just imagine like Game of Thrones, the first book that comes out. That's what we're releasing today. Only we're releasing it as an audio drama, which is essentially just like an audio book that has scoring and a phenomenal narrator behind it.
Yeah, and I did hear some of it. It's really solidly produced. You got a nice narrator. You got musical scoring and some nice sound effects, both ambient sounds and some sound cues now and then. So, yep. I mean, really well done. Now, is that... I saw that there were multiple parts. Is there a release schedule for that? Or are they all dropping at once?
Yeah, we decided to drop all the episodes at once. There's 11 total. I think it's little over 5 hours worth of content. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they're all available right now on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I think literally every platform. Yeah, you can go check it out now. Again, it's called The Forgotten King, and all episodes are available right now if you were to go check it out. We talked about doing a weekly release, but that's kind of how we had to experience the show, was wait a week or two for each episode to come out when we were doing production. And we were like, it's horrible. We don't want to offer that at all. So we decided to drop them all at the same time to hopefully, give fans a chance to just binge and go right through.
Yeah, I think that's a great move. Certainly, I mean, it's a lot easier for people to build momentum and not forget about it from one week to the next. But just as much as they want to dig in, it is there, and they can go all in. So that's very cool. Very cool. Okay, so you talked a little bit about. I wonder if you guys could. I don't know if there's a difference between the chronology of events in the different elements, the different products, as it were, of the Forgotten King. And if that's different from a chronology of the story, but do you know either one of those? I'm sure at this point, you can't talk release dates about some other stuff just because the nature of creative things means you're shaping things as they go. You're seeing how one thing is received, and you're just kind of rolling with it. But do you have a release order at least in mind, or I should say, an order of chronology for each element of the Forgotten King?
Yeah, Mike, you want to speak to that or me? You can take it. Yeah, go. Yeah, I have this slide in my mind. So the idea is the show and the game, they kind of ping pong back and forth. So what we released first is the animated series. Season 1 ties into Adventure Path 1, which then ties into season 2, and then Adventure Path 2. So you can kind of picture it ping-ponging back and forth. Roughly speaking, we'll do releases every 2 years or so. So 2 years for the animated series of the first season. And then what we really care about is releasing the game shortly thereafter, so you have that connective moment. And then another 2 years of development for season 2, and then and same thing on the Adventure Path side. So yeah, it's 2 years from the studio and the Yeah, go ahead, buddy. I also feel like we should clarify for the listener. We're a startup right now. This is conceptually what we want to do. We are currently raising money to finance the production of the TV show. This is all ambition stuff. What's dropping right now, the audiobook, the audio drama, is essentially the story of the first season of the TV show, which we are not in production on. Does that mean, I feel like that's really important to clarify. So in terms of chronological events, what we really want to have happen is for this audio drama to find an audience, and we build kind of the game and the show around that audience, and then do things like a comic book, and then do things like try to go to a major streamer or platform or raise money to animate the TV show that will then have the same visual relationship as the game. So does that make sense? We're on our path. We like to say too, we're just following in the footsteps of the greats, of what Martin and Tolkien did. They were just books at first, and then eventually, kind of gained an audience, and they started producing it, across.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that does bring some clarity. Thanks for that, Michael.
Yeah.
So along the lines of just the freaking ambition of this thing, I have to say that one of the reasons that I was interested in having this conversation with you guys is because of the uniqueness of not just the ambition. I mean, it's pretty well. It's increasingly common in the world of Christian geek creatives to take on smaller endeavors, indie endeavors, whether that's a book or whether that's a comic or maybe it is a video game or something like that, And those are pretty, situated in that indie space. Not that what you guys are doing isn't, but you guys are definitely doing something that is far beyond what the ambition of like a single person or a couple of people can do. And so I wonder, without needing to go into like a bunch of details and stuff, if you could give me like your bullet point resume history because that's another thing that fascinated me. I was like, oh, okay, so these guys actually have some background that could have helped them in some ways at least count the cost and know what they're about to take on. So I find that interesting. I wonder if you guys could each mention some of your background in mainstream entertainment media, just briefly.
Yeah, sure. So I was at Riot for 7 years, and I did a bunch of things.
Riot Games, yeah.
Yeah, Riot Games, sorry. And I did a bunch of things there, but primarily I was the head of partnerships, which gave me this unique perspective of just how business development and how important partnerships are in the ecosystem of gaming overall. I was pretty big on the esports side as well. And there's two other things I should mention. I was a big part of all the play tests there, so I got to see game development of different games in a really unique kind of way that was very player focused. And I was there for Arcane and watching specifically the power of an animated TV series that really delivered like the IP and the lore of Runeterra in a way that fans hadn't received before was incredible. But then also watching how fans had nowhere to go. Like they could play League. Like there was nowhere to go to kind of continue the story or be a part of the story. Anyways, I only bring that up because that's kind of where the idea came from, and at least whatever qualifications I have to go be the head of this thing. This will segue to Michael nicely. To be totally honest with you, Peter, like it's more the team that I've built, like the team that I have from just people that I know that are bought into this idea. They're like the heroes. They're the ones that know how to make all of this happen. I'm just kind of a guy with an idea, really. But anyways, and then Michael, please, for the entertainment side.
Yeah, this is such a different answer, which is part of the reason why I think us doing the startup together was such a good idea. I come from the entertainment industry, not from gaming. I started on reality television, The Bachelor, the show, the ABC show, The Bachelor, like 15 years ago. And after that, I hard pivoted into screenwriting. And for the last 10, 11 years, I guess now, have been doing TV and feature film writing, mostly adaptation work. So I get hired to take people's manuscripts and adapt them into, I think I've done almost entirely feature films, and then one or two pilots based off the books or the source material that I get from these clients. So yeah, I've been all doing screenwriting stuff and a little bit of acting as well, actually, in the entertainment industry for the last decade.
Okay, cool. And for more, people can poke around your IMDb page, right? Michael Stagliano, sorry.
Yeah, Michael Stagliano,
yeah. Okay, so great. And again, it was kind of seeing some of those things in your background that is like, gosh, if these guys get the funding, they could actually pull this off, and it could be really good. I mean, like it's that really stood out to me. So. But with a plan that's this ambitious, even given your backgrounds, what's your strategy for funding it? Are you guys using crowdfunding or investors or some other strategy? Like, what's the thinking there?
Yeah, kind of yes and. So I should say we started with a friends and family round, and that kind of got us off of our feet, being able to recruit, start the company, all that good stuff. And then we've brought, I think, 4 or 5 more angels on that are a little bit more notable. Jeremy Gorman, former, she was a VP or a president actually at Netflix. Tips and Co-Carnage, kind of big influencers in the space. So that gave us a little bit more capital to hire and kind of go further in development. And now maybe to directly answer your question, we're speaking with VCs and strategics to come on board. What's kind of difficult about that is like there's gaming VCs who are like, we fund games and game stuff, but they don't.
What's a VC? I don't know what a VC is.
Oh yeah, a venture capitalist.
Oh, okay.
Like what?
Like what?
Like Shark Tank, like the people on Shark Tank.
Yeah, I mean, those are
Okay.
technically more angel investors, but yeah, institutional money that look to get in early on a company. They usually write like anywhere between $1 million to $4 million check to get like 20% of the company, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, venture capitalists. And then once we have an audience built around the show that again is releasing right now, I see us doing crowdfunding in the future. It's just such a cool model for not just creating revenue, but making fans a part of it, and that's really where our heart is. So, yeah, institutional money right now, and then we'll look to do crowdfunding and more like a Series A, Series B in the future.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is a fun part. In terms of geek entertainment, I mean, you guys are tackling written storytelling, which is then converted into audio storytelling, which you're also looking at video games, you're looking at animation, TV show. I mean, all these kinds of a comic book.
Not as nerdy as it gets. Yeah.
So, like, what are some influences and inspirations for the different aspects of the Forgotten King? As you're thinking about, okay, a video game or a comic book or a written fantasy story, like just kind of like popcorn style, just start throwing out some books, comics, games, movies, shows, etc. that like have been influential, inspirational in some way toward that. Not, I don't want to say like you're taking stuff from, but like it gets you jazzed and ultimately resulted in what the Forgotten King is in its different, or what it will be in its different forms.
Oh, Peter, you're such a great host. How long do we have? Michael, you go first, and then let's just ping pong a bit.
I got to be honest. As I was listening to the question, the first thing that popped in my head was the Bible, which is cool. But there's also so many more: Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and Harry Potter. If a lot of fantasy novels and authors like Robin Hobb and Brandon or Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss and Greg Keyes. I don't know if you guys know who Greg Keyes is. Joe Abercrombie. Most of the major fantasy titles were huge inspirations for my work. And then, the Bible, because of what the adaptation, it's such a,
Yeah, I definitely want to circle around to that and talk about. We'll come back to that. We're definitely going to come back to that. But yeah, give me some more, Stephen.
We're such epic fantasy saga fans. So Game of Thrones, for the mainstream ones at least, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars has just had such a big, close place to our heart. Even I'll go as far back as like Never-Ending Story, Princess Bride, Willow. Those are franchises that just spoke to our hearts when we were really young, and put us in a world of fantasy and adventure that we understood to be similar to our own in a way. I could keep going, but those are the big ones that I think most nerds are like, yes, put me in Middle Earth, put me in Westeros. Like that's where our hearts live, pretty much all the time. And where I would say the seed of the Forgotten King was born as well. What we want to deliver is that type of like epic fantasy, get lost in this world of, magic and mystery and power.
What you just said was so good. It was so much better than what I said, and I wrote it. But whatever Steve said, just cut to that. That's what I hope fans of fantasy will see within 30 seconds of starting the Forgotten King. Like that's the aspiration.
Nice. Okay, so let's see. The chronology of kind of release at this point is the audio story, comic book, then video game.
Audiobook, then novel, then sorry.
Then like the print version of it. Or is that something different? Is the novel something different than
it'll be audio drama, audio book, and then comic book. The first two, the difference between the two is that the audio drama is just much more dressed up. It kind of almost it has more theatrics to it, if you will. And then the audio book will just be, literally like the novel, or you can just listen to it with just a narrator.
Is it the same text as the audio drama?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I think there'll be some slight differences, but yes.
Okay.
And then, comic book, that's our focus for the next year and a half, is getting those through. They're low cost, but high production geek culture ways to
audience.
Get the IP out and effectively de-risk the IP. We actually think it's if I can toot my own horn, a really smart way to do, build an audience in a low cost way. And then once we have our funding, whether that be through institutional or crowd, we go produce the animated series, which we're already working on in terms of breaking the story and all that, but that's kind of the roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so Michael, would I assume correctly that you would be writing the comic book?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then is it still on the to-do list to kind of figure out artists? I'm not asking for an announcement of an artist, but I mean, like, do you have that figured out yet, or?
There's. We can't announce anything. Let's just say we have a partnership that we're putting together with a company that knows the space very well.
Okay.
I can't really allude to anything more than that. But yeah, we've had a few meetings and just feel really good. Like they would handle the property really well and distribute it really well. And
but unofficial and unannounced, but we're definitely already thinking about that and are very excited about it.
Cool. So is that the kind of thing, like, as far as like your involvement in the comic, that like you are the strategy is, let's get people around us who know comics and they can do it? Or do you guys, are either of you, like, in particular comic book fans and like have some ideas and inspirations, like, I want, this kind of quality, this kind of vibe or whatever?
Yeah. Michael, you want to answer that or me?
Why don't you do it? You do it.
Yeah, I would say more of the former.
Okay.
We're not like comic book experts or nerds. I have a deep appreciation for comic books, especially in the Marvel universe. But we're not like super fans there, or consider ourselves SMEs, subject matter.
Gotcha.
So this one guy in particular that connected us to his company, just hearing him talk, I was like, oh, okay. Not only do you understand what we're trying to do, but you're like a nerd that understands the space deeply. Yeah. And just to connect this to my time at Riot, like, I saw the power of when you partner with brands that like really understand their space well and then can go and speak to their audience even for you. There's real power in that. So I'm even kind of excited to be totally honest about, like, here's the keys, you know what I mean? And we'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but kind of trust them to take the wheel and deliver it to that audience in a way that would resonate with them.
Can I sprinkle on top?
Yeah.
I feel like I've become at 40 the type of creative person that if I'm not the expert on like writing or storytelling, I don't want to make the decision about what to do. So when it comes to this comic book, I won't be redundant, but yeah, I'm really interested in what it will look like to have a team of other people tell me how to make the Forgotten King comic book dope, instead of me. Yeah, I like to weigh in and say what I like and don't like, but ultimately someone else will handle that for the better.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know this is even further out than the comic, but since, video games are like just the dominating medium among the ones that you mentioned, do you have any thoughts in mind at this point that you can share about the type of video game, the genre, the type of gameplay, or maybe make some loose comparisons to existing games in terms of like the gameplay type? Like, are we talking about a turn-based RPG? Are we talking about an RPG at all, real time with pause, or turn-based tactical, or anything like along those lines that you can share at this point?
Steve, I know you're going to answer this, but again, great question.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, really, really good question. What a tee up. So it's a story-driven cooperative role-playing game. That's the log line of what we're making. Okay. I think the best place to take people to is Baldur's Gate 3. If you're familiar with that franchise, just won Game of the Year, by the way. It's incredible. But it's incredible specifically because of you get to create a character in a world, and then you have it's called player agency. The decisions that the players make influence kind of how and where the story goes. And I'll also sprinkle this on there. For those of you who don't know, Baldur's Gate 3 uses the Dungeons and Dragons rule system. So, that's that turn-based, where RNG is a big piece of the game with dice. Yeah. Now, we actually see an opportunity there with the game that we're making. One of our pillars is snappy and strategic combat. So instead of rolling dice, it's just think more like World of Warcraft and abilities. So when it's your turn, instead of looking up a character sheet and try to figure out all the feats that comes in like kind of that D&D space. It's snappy. It's like, all right, cool. I've got whirlwind, or I've got block, and I could save my friends, but next person's turn. You know what I mean? So yeah, we really want to deliver on the player agency and immersion that comes with RPGs. We're like, you're a character in the world, which is what Baldur's Gate 3 did, but have a combat system that is, frankly, just more fun and easier to play with friends. Kind of easy to learn, but hard to master.
Yeah, I mean that is certainly speaking to me. I mean, I'm actually waiting for mods to come to console for Baldur's Gate 3 because I own it. I bought it on sale, but like at launch, I was like, this is not quite for me. It's just at the end of the day, I don't want to spend this much time thinking about every single move. I want interesting choices, but snappy is exactly the word that I would use. I like snappy, interesting choices so that I'm just not hammering A the whole time. So I got an interesting choice to make that would be to my advantage to choose.
Yeah.
But I'm still moving along and seeing, whatever neat animations there are and then getting through the fight and then moving on with the adventure. And it sounds like maybe even more defining aspect of the Forgotten King game will be the story. You mentioned that kind of in your brief description of it. So would you say that's the case, that it leans into story quite a bit?
Can I take that one, Steve?
Please, yeah, please.
I'm gonna, without knowing the story of the Forgotten King, I'm gonna try to illustrate for you what it should feel like in game. When you're playing with your buddies. The idea that we're flirting with is that there's a main character from the show that you're going to help out right at the beginning of the game. And because it's the same visual language, remember, he will literally be the character from the show that you're talking to in game. And there's a mystery that you and your friends are going to go on to kind of help uncover what is happening in the world of Eldaron, in the story of the show. Mm-hmm. And what we really want is for players who are fans of the Forgotten King, both the show, the audio drama, or the TV show when that eventually comes out, is that they are discovering things and learning things about the story that is connected with not just Easter eggs, but, plot things that they'll be uncovering that mystery and solving that mystery and playing alongside a main character from the show, which, not to be redundant from what Steve said at the beginning, just people aren't doing, studios aren't doing that, hasn't been done yet. And the idea of connecting gameplay with story content from a show is, that's what we're hoping players feel when they're in the game.
So it's why I would say story-driven first, right? And instead of what a traditional quest would be, we literally call our quest stories. So you get to decide with your friends, what stories do we want to go tell? And then they will all feel like it's like a chapter in the story of the Forgotten King. That's like the way we're setting it up narratively. And then from a game mechanics perspective, we have AI NPCs, and there'll be letters and clues that you'll find, all the things that you love from D&D and questing in high fantasy world, where characters will be like, what about this to help me with this problem? And, and it's all connected and is story driven, that again will resolve in a resolution of the larger plot line of the Forgotten King.
Great. Okay, very cool. Okay, so I did want to circle back to the Bible and just the role that plays. You guys are both Christians, and Steve, I got to hear some of your faith journey when we talked a couple of weeks ago. But the Forgotten King is not something being directed exclusively at a Christian audience. It's aiming for something more broad. Yeah. So how would you say that your faith in Jesus has affected your creative choices in this whole endeavor? And what kind of biblically inspired themes can attentive Christians, anyway, expect to find if they're paying attention?
Peter, you're the best host. That was such a great question. I'd love for you to go first.
Honestly, it's hard to know where to begin. Yeah, the story of Jesus is one that has been with Stephen and I since we came out of the womb together. It feels like, we grew up in the church, and what that has meant to us personally as men over the last 40 years is
we each walked away from our faith too for maybe 7 or 8 years. I think that's an important part.
Yeah, I was going to say 8 years. Yeah, and I think it's important to say too, struggled with our faith, right? The story of Jesus is not one to be taken lightly, and to strive to be like Jesus. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
To strive to be like Jesus, it wasn't always easy to be Jesus, I think, when you really hear about the story and the men that Jesus surrounded himself with and helped. It wasn't easy to be those guys either, so sometimes being a Christian is hard. It's really hard. And man, for those of us that are men of God too, when you, what's that line? If he is for me, who can stand against me?
sometimes if you feel like a badass when you're Jesus. Sorry, but you know.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sometimes it's the most powerful thing I've felt in my life. Like it is inspiring. It is uplifting. It is humbling. And, gosh, I'm barely answering the question, but so like, what does the story of Jesus mean for me penning a fictional adaptation called The Forgotten King? Like it's every word. It's in every. Yeah, it's in the words. It's in the title. And it's actually in the space between the words, and in the way that the Bible. You guys, if you read, the Bible was written so long ago, and the story words are still sharp today, man. They are still there's great stories in the Bible that you can learn from today. I like to think that part of what, frankly, it feels like the gift of the story of the Forgotten King is that it's going to it might have some of that in the same way that I think Tolkien, who was a Christian, adapt. They like the story of the Lord of the Rings is. Yeah. A lot of great filmmakers that I really respect and screenwriters. They talk about how there's really only one story. All stories come from the one story. And I think that story is about Jesus. And so I humbly say this, like The Forgotten King is truly just my kind of interpretation of that story. A Game of Thrones fantasy made up world with, like Castle Eldorado. Yeah, and people, but like characters, like people that are, if I'm being totally honest with you, man, I did not anticipate getting so emotional talking about it. Jeez.
That's right. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. The story, the main family is called the Aarons in Eldaron in the saga. And it's my family. It's Steve and I. We have a younger sister. She's there. Yeah. And the story spreads. Yeah. The stories about that family honestly kind of falling apart. And that's happened a little bit with our family. And then like there's wizards and shit that do like
yeah. Well, you gotta have those.
You gotta have it. But in the way that all the great fantasy works do too. Like the best stories are about people. Like Frodo and Sam, those are your boys. When like you love them. You love them because they're people. Yeah, Ray and Finn. You're like, go through Harry Potter. Are you kidding me? Like, I love that kid with the light. I love him. Like, you love him, and he can cast spells and do cool stuff. Wild that fantasy, an allegory. Yeah, and can elevate our real world experiences and stories and relationships and friendships. Oh my gosh. What an answer. What a ridiculous answer that was. Steve, do you want to try to sprinkle on top of what I said? Man. But
and Stephen, could you also cry while you talk?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I mean, if you invite it. Yeah. I look, here's maybe the ad that I'll give. Peter, I love that you shared with me that you had Dallas Jenkins on your show. And because he's a man that I am inspired by. And sorry, that's The Chosen guy. Yeah. And The Chosen, Michael hasn't watched it yet because he's idiot.
Well, I'm an idiot too. I'm waiting for it to be like done. I'm like, listen, I don't want to get in. I don't want to get into this and love it, and then the story not be finished. So listen, you take care of all that and get it done, and then I'm going to be in.
Watching, and that is your strategy. Full respect. It's actually brilliant because it's so bingeable. Oh my gosh. So I totally respect. Anyways, that show for me brought the story of Jesus to life in a way that was really powerful. So I've read through the Gospels a few times. And I read most of the whole Bible, and let's be honest, it's not a real page turner, right? Like you got to find the truth in there. But The Chosen. Well, you said I could cry.
It was a directive, Stephen. So
yeah, it's a little embarrassing maybe to admit, but like I cried in every episode watching it because when I look at who Jesus was and. I love that you said this, Peter, that we're not targeting just a Christian audience. It's because even if you're not a Christian, if you just look at the man that Jesus was, like, forget Son of God, like, fine, that's totally okay. The way that he lived his life, I mean, he defied and in a way took over, or I wouldn't say took over, but the Roman Empire, and historically speaking, kind of collapsed because of the influence that Jesus had. He never lifted a sword, right? He just had men follow him. He lived an incredibly humble life and just spoke truth to people and healed people. Like, that's the life that he lived. We know that he was a man that existed. So, and The Chosen brings, him to life in a way that, when told through specifically the lens of his disciples and the men that they were and how he impacted their lives and the influence that they had on others and who he claimed to be. Like, I share this with you, Peter. I've had a few mission statements in my life, like just of who I am and who I want to be. And I told you, like, I want to be the lion and the lamb. Like, I would just want to be like that guy. Like, the way that Jesus lived his life is how I think we're supposed to do it. You know what I mean? That's living well. And I'm trying to make this a connection to what Michael said, but the story that he's writing in a large way, it is an allegory to that. You know what I mean? It is an adaptation of a man that went through incredible suffering to then free the world. That is the heart of the Forgotten King, both as it applies to Jesus and the story that Michael's written.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. And I think that, like, the angle that it sounds like you guys are taking in terms of, like, taking inspiration from the person of Jesus, assuming that he is the Forgotten King, would that be fair to say that, like, that's the connection?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I mean, like, how much more true could that possibly be today than, when people think of Jesus, they're disregarding him. They have an oversimplified view in their mind of who he is and what category in their minds to kind of put him in. And I think Christians fall into this as well. I think a lot of Christians, their idea of the Christian life is one of just, like, always being happy and joyful and stuff. I mean, because we've been rescued, we've been promised eternal life, but they forget the part that, like, Jesus calls us to take up our cross and follow him and live the kind of life he lived, which the Bible calls him a man of sorrows. And so if we are not engaging in the Christian life to the degree that we are identifying in some sense, in some spectrum, with the sorrows that Jesus experienced as a result of the way he lived life, then we're not really fully engaging in the Christian life. And so to hear, I so appreciate you guys sharing your hearts and sharing some of that about who Jesus was and just kind of like the complexity and the beauty and the difficulty of that. I think we need stories that remind us that, like, it wasn't just the cross that defined the sorrow of Jesus' life. I mean, he was rejected and disregarded and misunderstood, and yet he was our king and is our king. And so what a beautiful metaphor to play around with and put out there. Really looking forward to seeing what you guys do with that. Okay, so given the funding strategy that you guys have chosen, where, like, right now it's more traditional funding, maybe later on we'll be looking at some crowdfunding stuff, but, like, as people are watching this or listening to this, they're not the angel investor type or whatever, but unless you are, then go check out playstorygames.com and get in touch with these guys. But for the rest of us, that maybe are liking what we're hearing, want to see this thing happen, how can people help make it a reality in some small way for now? And how can people best keep tabs on the Forgotten King news and updates?
Oh, man. You can take this one, but listen, and if you like it, tell one other person about it. For right now, I think a good call to action would be just listen to the show, and if you like it, share it with someone. That would be really helpful. Sign up on our website. You can sign up to be in our mailing list. We're really just looking to build a community at this point. So, but gosh, I'm gonna give you just the honest, vulnerable answer. At least answering a piece of your question, Peter. It's a really hard time to raise right now. That's where the market is. It's an election year. There's a lot that I could elaborate on, but venture capitalists, people that usually lend money, have got pretty tight wallets right now. And so, to be totally honest with you, it's been really hard. It's been really scary for a year and a half. We've been, on this grind to raise money. And as you very accurately pointed out, this idea has never been done before, like this transmedia experience. So, when you talk to people that give money and evaluate risks, they're like, this is incredibly risky. And I'm like, you're right. This is very risky to do. So it's been hard. We're I wouldn't say at the end of our road. We have it's called 3 months of runway left is what you say. But the idea that if enough people listen to this, if enough people like it and it resonates with enough people and we build a community, I meant what I said, that's what we really need, whether or not we crowdfund from that community or just turn around to an investor and say, hey, we've got thousands of people that believe in the Forgotten King and want to see it become, an epic fantasy property like Lord of the Rings. We can turn to an investor and then they would give us money because then you're making a product for a people, for a community. So the best way to help right now really is just to listen and reach out to join our Discord, be a part of our community. And
you can listen to it anywhere, on any podcast platform, anywhere.
Yeah, we're putting it out on YouTube too, so you can just watch it. And then actually in a couple of months, we're going to release one of Michael just telling the story and curating it. So
cool.
Yeah, listen and follow and follow along. Just kind of be a part of the story. I think for now, is how you can help.
Awesome. Okay, so The Forgotten King, check it out on the podcast platforms. You can go to playstorygames.com. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more as things move forward. So please let me know when you've got things to announce, things to share. Thank you, Michael and Stephen, so much for taking time to do this with me. This has been great. I wish you guys just tons of success with the Forgotten King and story games.
I really appreciate the questions and the time. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, Peter, I want to say it again. You've just been a phenomenal host. Really, really good questions. And I should say this too, otherwise my producer would be upset. Play Story Games is where you go for the game. TFK Series has got all the content on it as well. TFKseries.com. Sorry for the shameless plug. I just wanted to throw that out.
No. That's great. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much. This has been great, guys.
Yep.